All right, St Kilda have beaten West Coast by 72 points at Marvel Stadium. I did the live stream this morning. It was good fun. Not so much the game, but talking about football with you guys for 3 hours was good fun. I am one hour nap later and my third coffee of the day, and we're here to unpack everything that we saw today. Not the funnest game to endure. Now, I tipped West Coast, which I think I said in my preview. I certainly tipped them on just the tips, and I changed my tip at the last minute to to St Kilda, sorry, as I did the last time we played St Kilda because we had a number of outs. Once the teams got announced, I saw that we were the youngest team in the competition this weekend, which is something. I don't think we've been the youngest team in the competition, the youngest selected 22 or 3, since, I don't know, I reckon it's at least 15 years. I reckon since the wooden spoon. Since then, probably not. And so that made me do a bit of a double take, and then you also consider we didn't just become the youngest side because we dropped Gaff, Darling and Sheed. We'd already done that. It was because we were missing Elliot Yeo, Jeremy McGovern and Liam Duggan, who are pretty impactful players, you'd have to say. So my confidence of winning the game was low, but I still feel like we should have played a lot better than that, and I expected us to. It was an interesting game where in the first half it felt like we were getting off easy. I think St Kilda were getting their supply. They were controlling the footy. Their pressure was good. We didn't look horrific. We certainly didn't look good. And we were still able to get goals against the run of play here and there with some good bits of play in isolation. And it felt like the door was still kind of open, at least in the second quarter. I don't remember what the halftime score was. And then in the second half, the resistance really broke, which was disappointing. Now, some of that could be down to, well, the fact that we had a very young team, and I really don't want to make excuses because I think we should have played better, so I need to get the tone right of this. But I'm just trying to diagnose why things got so bad in the second half. I think we certainly stopped. You know, there was a bit of resistance in the first half. We were still getting well beaten. And in the second half, particularly the last quarter, it just felt like we ran out of legs and they were winning the ball out of the centre very, very easily, particularly the first 5 minutes of the last quarter. I think they got like 3 or 4 goals. So that got a bit ugly. On the flip side of that, I did notice we had a very young on-ball selected team. You know, like when you look at the centre bounce in that last quarter, it was like true Jinbi and Reed constantly, which was just an observation. But overall, it doesn't really make us feel that much better about what happened because we should have played better. We should have gotten closer. Perhaps there's a bit of an emotional dump from last week, probably, but we should be still holding the standards a little bit higher, definitely higher. So what do? We sack the coach. It reminds me of that episode of The Office where Michael quits Dunder Mifflin and he goes and starts his own paper company. And when that starts to go out of business, he goes, "That's right, I'll break away and start my own paper company." That's what it feels like with the coach. And before we get into the mechanics of the game, I have noticed a little bit of this conversation, you know, maybe it wasn't Simo's fault that we're playing so badly. Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument to that. I do think, though, that we were never going to get questions answered in the first fortnight after him getting sacked, right? So in the same way that us playing well last week has nothing to do with us being rid of a bad coach, us playing poorly does not mean that he is necessarily vindicated. I think the clean break, I think it was time for that. I think there was too much negativity swirling for this to continue. So I'm not going to really get bogged down into conversations about should we have sacked Simo, just to put that out there. I think we need to be forward thinking about this for sure. It's deflating. This is coming off, it's been a deflating 9 games. I don't know what the streak is now of losses. And, you know, it felt like after the Melbourne game when we torched Melbourne and played really well and Harley Reid and Jake Waterman, you know, exploded. It felt like we had a bit of light at the tunnel after a bleak couple of years. And now it's revealed that as we walk a little bit further down the tunnel, it turned out to be just like this little goblin with a flashlight going, "Tricked you!" And there's still a lot more tunnel to go, and we're not quite at the end of it yet. And in theory, it could get worse with the fact that our list is going to transition over time. But we'll see how we go. We'll get into the off-season stuff at a later date. But yeah, overall a deflating performance. And you look at the rest of the season now, and I feel increasingly confident that we're going to go very close to winning the wooden spoon now. Because we need to win another game, and I don't feel like we have it in us right at this current point in time. We got the Derby next week, and we will have Yo, potentially McGovern, potentially Duggan as well. But it's hard to see us jagging one more in the last 5. We got Gold Coast at home. We got North Melbourne in Tassie. I'm not going to tip us in those games. You know, if I do, stop me. And equally, you know, right as I'm recording this, Richmond's putting up a really good fight against the Power in Adelaide. And, North Melbourne should beat us in Tassie. So is that the best thing for this football club right now? Another wooden spoon? I mean, I really want to avoid it, but maybe it is. Even if we trade the pick, it gives us a lot more trading power with that selection. So at this point in time, we don't have a coach to play for. We're already in a bad way. We're already a subject of a lot of the media negativity. Maybe the wooden spoon is A, likely, and B, maybe the best thing for us. I don't know. So I usually will break this up into positives and negatives, and I will do the same today, which is not to say that the positives are as powerful as the negatives, but there are still a number that I would like to talk about. Some players in isolation played really well today, even if the system was bad, and we can't expect the system to rectify itself in a week or two, but anyway. Let's talk about some negatives. So first of all, with the selection stuff, specifically the decision to make Josh Rotham the sub. I thought, Rotham coming back in with Harry Edwards also there, maybe it makes sense structurally to have a third tall. But you make that third tall, that structural piece, that is the only way you'd have Rotham in this team, in my opinion. A need, from a structural point of view, to have him in the team. So having him as a sub, it's just about as bad as the Jack Williams sub decision. I think when you've got a player who is destined to be delisted, I don't know what value it was expected Josh Rotham to have as the sub in this game. That is the first criticism I'll make. It had nothing to do with losing the game, don't get me wrong, but I feel like selection and who we're giving opportunities to is important. And I feel like this was a real nothing selection to make Rotham the sub. I would have given him the week off or started him in the 22. And they clearly didn't believe Rotham was an integral part of our structure in this game, so he was really there just to make up the numbers, and I'm annoyed by that. There's probably someone else we could have given a game to, like a Tyrell Dewar. Some players had some real dirty days today. I mean, if you're on the stream, I started laughing at how bad Alex Witherden was in this game. The stats will say he had 7 marks and 20 possessions, but my God. I feel like the only time you notice Witherden on screen is him yelling at the umpire about a free kick he's just given away. And the stupid thing is he has some job security because we don't have a lot of other medium-sized defenders that are any good. Some of them are called Josh Rotham. Tom Cole's already in the team. He's not playing particularly well. I think he's probably worth keeping. There's Jermaine Jones, another player destined to be delisted, surely. But yeah, Witherden I thought was quite poor today. Jermaine Jones was another one who was quite poor and can't possibly keep his spot. I mean, I like the guy, and I do think he has some AFL traits. In a different universe, if he's playing for a better team, he'd be able to be utilised in a way that uses his strengths, but at the moment he's getting horribly found out pretty much every time he touches the footy. And another bad day for Jermaine Jones. Jamie Cripps had one of the worst games I've ever seen him play, to the point where it almost got funny. When the game was already dead and buried and I'm laughing along on the stream trying to make a joke of the game, Jamie Cripps just fails to pick up a ball for about 5 metres and then falls on and gets pinged holding the ball. Several missed tackles, which was less funny. And just some poor kicks. And I love Jamie Cripps, and I do think he has a lot to offer for us for the rest of his contract, which is the end of 2025. But absolutely, you have to call it when you see it. Jamie Cripps had a dirty day today, and it hurt us. And I think Liam Ryan had an almost day. And I'm not as critical on Ryan because I think he did a couple of good things, and the effort was there. It just felt like he'd almost take a great mark. Or there was a poor kick on the wing going inside 50 that he shanked for no reason. That really pissed me off. But it felt like an almost day for Ryan without being absolutely horrendous. So we'll talk about some of the stats. We got smashed in tackles, and we were minus 29 in contested ball. That's a one-sided battering. Minus 28 in uncontested ball. Another battering that we're becoming used to, and we were still out-tackled 65 to 43. There's like 5 or 6 Eagles who didn't register a tackle, and it just showed how far off the pace they were. Now, we'll talk about the inside 50 tackles, the forward 50 tackle stat. I think this might be a little overblown, although I'm not going to dismiss it out of hand. So it was 23 to St Kilda and 0 to West Coast. We didn't register a single tackle inside 50 throughout the whole game. And Jakovic, there's some footage out there of Jakovic really grilling Alan about this, and Alan looks pretty upset. Poor guy, I feel for him right now. I am not going to say that it doesn't mean anything. It does. I don't think our pressure inside 50 was good, but I think it's also not the best way to analyse it in isolation as the forwards not putting in any pressure. I think this is also a byproduct of some very bad inside 50s. So it felt like when we went inside 50s, we'd either do something good with it, and then in particular, to give some credit, Jack Williams and Oscar Allen, I thought, took some good marks and made the most of their opportunities. I think at one point, Allen had 2 goals from 4 touches and Williams had 2 goals from 3 touches. And I think both of them did okay considering the lack of supply. It also felt like there was a lot of inside 50 ball that were just blatant turnovers. So when the ball's either going directly to a forward or it's a shank and not giving our forwards any chance, that actually makes it hard to lock the ball inside 50. We weren't getting repeat entries. We had 37 inside 50s, which is absolutely deplorable. So that is all ingredients for why you might not get too many tackles inside 50. It's not to give the forwards too much of a break, because this is not the first time that's happened. I think we also did that against Hawthorn. But I do think it's also a byproduct of some other things other than just the forwards not putting in a shift. So that's my piece on that. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than simply lack of defensive pressure, but we know we're not good in that stat anyway. And yeah, even with Jamie Cripps playing, like, he's meant to be there to marshal the forwards and put in a really good standard with defensive running and tackles inside 50. I think in both the years we've made the grand final, Cripps was number 1 in the league for that stat. So just something to consider. We also got battered in clearances 31-23, which, yeah, is pretty one-sided, although we were missing Elliot Yeo, and we know we have a bad midfield. So overall, yeah, pretty poor performance. I will highlight some guys I think did well, and these are positives that are not something to be ignored. I think Tom Barrass has been unreal. Like, Tom Barrass was fantastic in this game. At one point, he was one of our highest possession winners, and I don't know where that exactly ended, but he was spoiling the ball, doing a really good job, and really lifted lately. Over the last, 10 weeks, I don't think his start to the season was particularly strong. And since then, he's been fantastic, and we are blessed to have him. Jaden Hunt also, 35 disposals. I don't know if he's ever done that before. 82% efficiency, and more so than just that, I think he just worked really hard. And it's good to see that. I think off our half-back flank, he's been able to get back into the game and adding value to this team. Ryan Marrick also had one of his best games at AFL level, when you consider he had a goal in 19 possessions, again in that new role, 5 marks. And him getting his hands on the footy is really positive. I think he went at about 78%. Yeah, another good performance from a young guy that is, I don't even know if he's 20 yet, I could be wrong. Ruben Jinby also, I think, is taking strides in this new half-back role. He spent the last quarter on ball. Schofield said they just wanted to try something different, and I think from a development point of view, that's fine. 3 quarters down back, get your hands on the footy. 22 disposals might be the most he's ever had. 5 tackles, and then a quarter on ball to keep that development going. That's fine. And I think he played well, and his ball use was okay, I thought. Harley Reid also had a positive game. It wasn't, we hold him to a higher standard because of what he has done at AFL level, but he's dealing with a lot more negative attention. And I think, considering that, his 19 disposals is 12 kicks, so more kicks than handballs in a game where he's probably having a bit more pressure. I will acknowledge he did spend a little bit of time in the back half, in the second half of this game. But either way, I think he worked hard. And when you lay 4 tackles, you win 4 clearances, and you go at 84%, I really don't think Harley Reid put in a bad performance. I won't say he was a glowing positive, but it wasn't a bad performance by any stretch. Brady Hough had another really good game. 22 disposals, 7 marks, and Jack Higgins, his opponent, had 1 goal on 10 possessions. And Higgins may not be Charlie Cameron, but he can be very, very dangerous. And Hough, when you win the ball 22 times as well, Brady Hough, one of the shining lights of this season, absolutely. I've already highlighted Jack Williams and Allen, but in particular Jack Williams, there was a really strong mark he took in the forward 50, and I'm just continually impressed by this guy. There's so many reasons for why he would not be where he is right now, and despite that, he has been another shining light for us, and it's just so dumb that he was A, dropped, and then B, sub, considering where we're at. Anyway, hopefully that's behind us, because I think he did well. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, Harry Edwards has showed a bit as a key back in the team, and I think someone we give another contract to, and partially, like I've said, that's necessity. A couple of players that, these are probably just general points. I don't think Campbell Chesser was bad. I've seen people coming for him. I think he had 9 disposals and then was subbed out, which is kind of in line with the rest of his performances. Now, he didn't spend any more time on the inside at the centre bounce than he normally does. I think he attended 1 centre bounce. So the role was exactly the same as it always was, and his performance was about the same as it always was, which was a low possession, but it was okay with the ball in hand. Again, you can make the argument, would it have been better for him to play Waffle? Well, there was no Waffle game this week, was there? But would it be going forward better for him in the Waffle? I think that's a question that's open for discussion. I think Zane True was okay, but I think he is just a limited footballer and doesn't have the same support, let's be real. That being said, I think it's still touch and go whether he gets a contract, but, I'd probably keep him in the side over, say, a Dom Sheed this week. I thought he was okay, with a big uplift in responsibility. He was fine. But again, probably not a long-term part of this midfield, in my personal opinion. I think Simo saw that too, but it doesn't mean that he shouldn't have been given an opportunity. Okay, that's all I got for you for now in terms of analysing that game. Not a whole lot to get out of it. Like a few youngsters playing well, and that's positive. And we did have the younger side of the competition this week. Disappointing way to fade out the game. I think we kind of held in there for about 2.5 quarters, and I thought it was going to get better. I thought, okay, we'll weather the storm for a little bit and make a charge and get this game close, even if it wasn't going to result in a win. And unfortunately, the opposite happened, and that is disappointing. We go into a Western Derby, and I am not feeling good about it. And yeah. At least we had the first one, right? At least we had the first one. But we'll get some soldiers back, and hopefully we play well. But we'll unpack all of that as the week goes on. By the way, I'm also considering maybe switching up the format. You know, we'll do the review every week. Maybe making 2 videos instead of 1 around the previews. So maybe one where I just talk about the opposition, and another one talking about selection, and making that more of a regular thing. Because in this week, you know, I talked up West Coast and I tipped us. But, you know, then the teams came out and I completely changed my mind about how the way the game was going. So let me know any ideas you have for format. But for now, let me know in the comments what you thought of this game. I know there's a lot of negativity out there, but this is a safe space. Tell us what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Heaps of people watch this channel that do not subscribe, like 50%. So I really appreciate it if you are someone who tunes in regularly. If you just hit subscribe, help to grow the channel, I'd really appreciate it. But for now, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.